Lisa Hamler-Fugitt, Director of the Ohio Association of Second Harvest Foodbanks.
Great. Thank you so much. And want to thank you all for coming this evening. And I think one thing that we know, certainly this unending Great Recession, and that's what I call it, while economists tell us that the recession has ended, I can tell you from the work that we do, we continue to see the carnage roll out day after day, week after week, and month after month. I try to explain to folks that our food banks, 12 Feeding America or Second Harvest food banks, supply food funding, training, and technical assistance to a network of some 3,300 member charities. 80% of our charities are faith-based organizations operating on budgets of less than $25,000 a year, and they're largely volunteer-driven. We've been tracking service statistics on a monthly basis since 1996, and if any of you know what happened in 1996, President Clinton signed the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act, which ended a 60-year entitlement to basic cash assistance to our most vulnerable, families, primarily women with children. And while we saw a massive growth in jobs during the Clinton administration, those jobs came about specifically and primarily in the service sector. Jobs that do not provide full-time benefits, with living wages, with health care, with paid time off. And I will tell you that our lines since then have continued to grow through multiple recessions. And I liken this great unending recession that the facts don't really matter. In May, the Federal Reserve came out and reported that from 2007 to 2010 that the net worth of the average family dropped by 38.8%, was the biggest drop since they began collecting this data in 1992. And in fact, income, real wages from work had dropped by 7.7% during the same time. In essence, those high-wage manufacturing-based jobs that provided the opportunity for not only the solid middle-income lifestyle where families could send their children to college, where they hoped that their children would move up beyond them in the economic scale, was really ending, and any possibility of retirement was gone. Housing values were plummeting. In fact, 1 in 4 homeowners are now underwater in their home. At the same time, we are being eaten alive by rising healthcare costs. Healthcare costs have risen by 3 times the rate of inflation. And from 2000 to 2009, Ohioans have lost $22.3 billion out of their paychecks. 16.4% of Ohioans now live at or below the federal poverty level. And why we talk a lot about poverty. Poverty is increasing among households that are above 100% of poverty, but in my lines where we're seeing it the most are people that work every day, that play by the rules, who are working multiple jobs, stringing every part-time job they can together. We are mandated to provide services for households up to 200% of the federal poverty level. And in the last quarter, over 2.3 million Ohioans had to turn to a local church, to a local not-for-profit organizations. They aren't earning enough to be standing in grocery store checkout lines, but at the end of a long day, they have to stand in a food pantry or soup kitchen line. There is something wrong in America when we have politicians, including our own president, that will not stand up for the food stamp program. Why he did not claim this, and why the right labeled him as a food stamp president. You know what? Thank God we have a federal nutrition safety net that provides a modest little benefit of not more than $16 a month for a senior and not more than $21 a week for a low-income working person. I can only imagine what this country would look like if we had nearly 1 in 6 Americans who didn't have a federal nutrition program to turn to. I carry this map around, and Linda, you will appreciate this map. It is a map that is bracketed. The red designates the number of individuals in that county that have incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level, and that's 40 to 45% of all individuals in that county have incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level. This map was just updated, and in fact, today, 3,561,514 Ohioans, 31.8% of the state's population, now have incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level.
Could you say that again, please, Lisa?
3,561,514 individuals, 31.8% of Ohioans have incomes at or below the federal poverty level. 59 counties of our state now have 30% or more of their residents with incomes below 200% of the federal poverty level. In last year's map, we had 4 counties that fell in the range of 10 to 15%. They were the very affluent counties of Medina, Union, Warren, and Delaware. This year, only 1 county, Delaware, held that distinction. I was recently in Medina County. If you know much about Medina County, it's still a really affluent county. There's a wonderful group there called Feed Medina County. It's run by a wonderful woman by the name of Sandy Calvert. And for those of you who might recognize that name, she's married to former Representative Chuck Calvert, who chaired the Finance Committee for many, many years. He's now been term limited. I had the great good fortune to be with them the evening of the food pantry distribution. Chuck Calvert now works at the food pantry, and he said, "Lisa, you came before my committee begging for crumbs to help keep our food pantry stocked, and I never really believed what you told me. Today, I stand in that line, and I am serving people that I served with on civic and social committees, who I drank with in the local pubs, but more importantly, the country club, who now find themselves, and I can say through no fault of their own, who should be living out their golden years, are now standing in our food lines asking for food because they need it. I also challenge our elected officials to post these maps in their offices, so when they come in every day, they realize and they look at these maps, and I'll pass it around, and know that they represent everyone in their district, not the chosen few. We've heard a lot of data tonight. I think the data speaks for itself, but certainly during this election cycle, doesn't really mean much. Data doesn't hold true. It's all about spin and falsehoods. In our association, we believe that it's important to give a voice to the voiceless, and we started a paper plate campaign. We have collected over 35,000 paper plates written by people who stand in the food line, because theirs are the voices that are lost in this. One paper plate read, "Don't have enough money to make my bills. Can't buy food for my 8-year-old. I work and still can't afford food. Medicine, doctor, car insurance, car maintenance, pay utilities, etc. I've had to sleep in a car for many nights and go to work with no restroom to get ready." One paper plate read, "My mother is 90 years old, lives by herself, and draws only $16 a month in food stamps. Please," the plate begged, "keep the pantry open. She is the greatest generation. $16 a month in food stamps, just 50 cents a day for the greatest generation." So, in conclusion, as I know I stand between you and the door, as we all want to scurry off to watch the first debate. By the time President Obama and Governor Romney throw the first punches tonight in tonight's debate, many of the nation's 16 million poor children will be fast asleep. Some of them will have gone to bed hungry. Some of them will be sleeping in homeless shelters and substandard housing. Many of them live in distressed communities with few quality jobs available for their parents and going to school in very struggling public schools. All of them face certain hurdles in academic achievement, employment prospects, and economic success that threaten the long-term economic competitiveness of our country. Children living in poverty are less likely to be successful in school, less likely to gain employment be gainfully employed over their lifetimes, and the longer children live in poverty, the worse their adult outcomes are, including employment and earnings. Those 16 million poor children represent 1 in 5 of the children in the United States. Moreover, poverty rates are alarmingly higher for the very young, children under the age of 6 and those of color. The prevalence of poverty among the very youngest children means that during their earliest years of life, a fundamental period for rapid brain growth and development, babies are derived of the very resources that they need to thrive. It is past time to have a meaningful dialogue about poverty in this country, one in which that we recognize the fate of 1/5 of our nation's children is our collective faith, one in which we commit ourselves to standing together as a country for our children, one in which we admit that our public investments in the future workforce, particularly during the earliest years of life, are woefully inadequate, one in which we acknowledge that government has an important role to play in increasing opportunity and reducing poverty and income equality. Solutions to child poverty exist. President Obama and Governor Romney, what do you propose? Thank you.